Hey guys, and welcome to the video. So I'm back with another tier list, and today I'm going to rank every buff in Terraria 1.4. And just to clarify, every buff means anything that shows up on the buffs page of the Terraria wiki. So that not only includes potions, but also mounts, summons, and other miscellaneous status effects. And in case you were wondering, yes, I am still working on the Dungeon Guardian video, and have now finished testing ranged weapons. Another teaser is that it takes 2 hours and 5 minutes to defeat the Dungeon Guardian with a blowpipe. Now, on to the video. Alright, so first up we have the ammo box, and honestly, any of the station buffs I think are just like a win, because you have the station, it has infinite uses. Now I will say this can only be used for one class, which kind of brings it down a little bit, but overall I would say that the ammo box is pretty solid, so I'm gonna put it in B tier. Now we have the ammo reservation potion, which is literally just the exact same thing as the ammo box, but in potion form. So I'm gonna put it just right below the ammo box. All right, now we got the archery potion, which increases arrow damage and fire speed. This is actually a really good potion for ranger if you're using bows. There is the problem that it only works for bows, but I would say that this is also a B, probably above these two. All right, now we have the baby finch, and if I'm being honest, this is probably the worst summon in the game. It does have bonuses for being cute, and the little nest on your head is also kind of a cool novelty, but overall this summon is really just not that good, so I'm probably gonna put it low C tier. All right, now we have the slime staff buff. I think I'm actually gonna throw this in A tier, just because it's cool and for nostalgia. All right, now we have the basilisk mount, and this mount is cool. It's fast, it can double jump, and it looks cool, so I'm gonna put it top of B tier. All right, now we have the battle potion, and this is like an ideal potion for farming items. I am gonna put this in S tier. I think it's a great potion for a lot of different uses. All right, next we have the B mount. Now the B mount is very novel, and it's the first flying mount that you can get in the game, I'm pretty sure, but it's really rare and it's not super useful or maneuverable, so I'm gonna put this in like top of C tier. Right, now we have Beetle Endurance, and this just gives you flat damage reduction. I would say that the resistance from the Beetle armor is pretty good, but I would prefer the damage, so I'm gonna put this in top of C tier, I think. All right, and now we just have the damage equivalent of the Beetle armor using the Beetle scale mill, and I prefer this to the defense, so I'm gonna put this a little bit higher in B tier. All right, now we have the Bewitching table buff, Bewitched, and this is a great buff. It increases your max summons by 1, and it's from a station, so it's infinite uses, and for that reason, I'm gonna put this top of A tier. All right, now we have the book mount, and if I'm being honest, this is probably one of my least favorite mounts in the game. I think it's cool, but it's really hard to use, and not all that fast or really useful at all, so I think I'm gonna put this in D tier. All right, next we have the builder potion, and this is a super useful potion, so for that reason, because I enjoy building, and even if you don't, just building arenas and stuff, this is great, so I'm gonna put this in S tier. All right, now we have the bunny mount. Now this mount's pretty easy to get because you just have to do 5 fishing quests, but it's not overly useful. I don't see anything too special about it, so I'm probably just gonna put it mid C tier. All right, now we have the calming potion, which is basically the opposite of a battle potion, and this is also a very useful potion. I don't find myself using it quite as much as a battle potion. However, I still think it's a great potion, and for that reason, I think I'm going to put it top of A tier. All right, now we have clairvoyance, which is the crystal ball buff, and this is just an overall great buff to your magic stats, so I think I'm gonna put this in A tier, but low A tier. All right, now we have the campfire buff, and I mean, everybody knows the campfire buff. It's not super substantial, but campfires are just so easy to make and so versatile. Everybody puts them in their arenas. I think I have to put it in S tier, just because of how much you use this buff. Next up, we have the cute Fisheron mount, and this mount is amazing. Not only can it fly infinitely, but it also gets bonus speed in rain and water, and you get damage buffs. So it's one of the best mounts in the game, in my opinion, and for that reason, I'm gonna put it in S tier. All right, now we have Damaging Nebula, and this is the damage portion of the Nebula set bonus. I don't know if it's S tier, but I definitely think it's like high A tier, so I'm gonna throw it right around there. All right, now we have Danger Sense, and Danger Sense is really good. It actually got even better in 1.4 because now you can use it to see the crumbling bricks in the dungeon. I'm gonna put this top of B tier. All right, so now we have one of the 3 horse mounts, and I mean, the horse mounts are kind of lame, I'm not gonna lie. They're basically just a pre-hard mode unicorn, but you also have to fill out a decent chunk of the bestiary, so I'm gonna put them in D tier. Alright, now we have the Deadly Sphere summon, and this thing's actually really good. I think for the time that you get it, it definitely stands up, but it's not like the best summon or anything, so I'll probably put it like mid B tier. Alright, now we have the new Desert Tiger summon. I don't think it's overly amazing, especially since you need, you know, a biome key to get it, but I think it's still pretty good, and it's also super cool looking, so I think I'm gonna put it right around where I just put the Deadly Sphere and put it in B tier. Now we have the Drill Containment Unit, and I mean, this thing's great. I honestly wish it was a little better, but overall, I think it's a very good mount, and for that reason, I will put it in A tier. Alright, now we have the Dryad's Blessing, and the Dryad's Blessing's a great buff. It's kind of hard to get because you obviously have to be in range of the Dryad, and the Dryad has to be attacking something, but I think the buff itself is really good. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in A tier. Alright, now we have Durandal's Blessing. I think it's good, but it's nothing special, so I'm just going to put it in top C tier. Alright, now we have the Blade Staff, and this thing's pretty good. It has a very low base damage, but it also has really good armor penetration. So I think it's a very unique summon, but I don't think it's overly great. So I'm just going to put it in low B tier. Alright, now we have the Endurance Potion, and this is one of my key potions that I always use during boss fights. So for that reason, I'm going to throw this in S tier. Now we have Exquisitely Stuffed, and again, this is something that you're always going to want to strive for, and especially in 1.4, Exquisitely Stuffed is so good. It buffs so many things. So for that reason, I think I have to put it in S tier as well. Alright, now we have the Featherfall Potion, and I'm sure this has some uses, but I have never used it, and I think it's terrible, so I'm gonna put it in F tier. Alright, now we have the Fishing Potion, and this just increases your fishing power. I don't think there's anything special about it, but I also think it's quite useful, so I'll put it top of B tier. Alright, now we have the Flamingo mount, and this reminds me a lot of the Tortoise mount that does very similar things. I don't think there's anything special about it, so I'm just gonna put it in C tier. Alright, now we have the Flipper Potion, and this is just the Flipper accessory, but in potion form. I really just don't see much of a point for it when there is an accessory that does the same thing that's really easy to get. So I'm gonna put it like bottom of C tier probably. Now we have the Gills Potion. This is the other potion that has to do with water, except this one I find a lot more useful. I don't think it's super special. I think it's pretty situational, but it also has its uses, so I'm gonna put it mid B tier. All right, now we have the Goat mount, and I mean, this thing is okay. It's definitely better than the horses, but it's also very similar to them. I don't think I would ever use it, but I mean, it's decent, so I'll just put it in this C tier mount group, I guess. And then we have the Golf Cart, which again is a mount that I never really use, but it is cool. I will give it the cool points. But there's nothing much past that, so I'll probably just again put it in this mount cluster right here. All right, now we have Gravitation Potions, and you don't use these too often, but they're super useful at the beginning of the game to find Sky Islands, and I pretty much always want to find them in my run. So for that reason, I'm going to put them in A tier, but probably bottom A tier, because after that initial use of them, they kind of fall off a little bit. All right, now we've got the Happy buff from Sunflowers. This is a nice buff. It's a pretty easy buff that you can just kind of throw in your arenas for passive speed increase. For that reason, I am going to put it in A tier. Now we have the Heart Lantern buff, which is, again, a passive buff that just gives you HP regen, so I will put it with the Sunflower. I find that HP regen is a little bit less useful than speed, but it's still good, so I'll put them right there together. All right, now we have the Heart Reach buff, and this buff's great. I honestly don't find it as useful as some people I think make it out to be, but I think it's a great buff, so I'm going to put it probably top of B tier. All right, now we have Holy Protection, which used to be Shadow Dodge, and I mean, I don't think I have to say this much. A free dodge coming from a set bonus of armor is so good, so I mean, this has got to go in S tier. All right, and now we have the Honey buff, which again increases your regen. Now, I honestly don't find this as useful as a lot of people do. A lot of people just throw honey all over their arena, but my problem is honey slows you down so much that I honestly just don't find myself using it that much. So I think I will probably make some people mad by doing this, but I'm gonna put honey in bottom of B tier. All right, now we have the Hornet Staff. Now, this summon's pretty good. It's ranged, it has a good fire rate, and it poisons enemies. The problem that I always have with this summon is that it's really bad at aiming. So for that reason, I think I'm going to put this summon, well, I'll put it in B because it is actually pretty good as long as it hits its target. All right, now we have the Hunter Potion. I think the Hunter Potion is super useful in finding enemies. So for that reason, I think I will put it in A tier. It's also useful for finding like NPCs that you're looking for. All right, now we have the Ice Barrier. This is the buff that you get from the Frozen Turtle Shell, and I think this thing is pretty good, although I don't play melee that much, so I don't have a ton of experience with it. The damage reduction is is pretty good. So I will put this in B tier. All right, now we have the Imp Summon, and honestly, I've always been a little underwhelmed by the Imp Summon. It has the similar problem with the Hornet Staff, where it's not the best at aiming. It's not insane for being the last pre-hard mode summon that you can get. I mean, for that reason, I'll probably just put it in like B tier around the Blade Staff. All right, now we have the Inferno buff. I never use the Inferno buff, and it creates a super annoying particle effect around your players, so for that reason, I think I'm gonna put it in F tier. Right, now we have the invisibility buff, and this is one of those buffs that I never use, and I don't really see it super useful. I guess multiple player instances, it could be kind of fun to use, but against enemies, I don't know. Personally, I'm gonna put it in D tier. All right, now we have the Iron Skin buff, which just increases your defense. This is the best at the early game, and then it kind of becomes less useful in the later game, but it's still a really nice buff regardless, so I think I will put this in A tier, just because, I mean, it's super easy to craft, and pretty much everybody uses it. All right, now we have another one of these whip buffs, and I mean, I guess I might as well just put it with the other one, right? All right, now we have the Lava Shark pet, and I actually really like this pet. I think it's super cool. It's also pretty useful, especially since it provides immunity to lava, so for that reason, I'm gonna put this in A tier. All right, now we have the Life Drain, and this increases regen by taking it from other enemies. So, I mean, it's a cool buff. So, just for being cool, I think I'll put it bottom of A tier. All right, now we have the Life Force Potion, and I mean, I don't really think I have to make my case too hard in saying that the Life Force Potion is amazing. Increasing your maximum life by 20%, it's so good. So, I mean, this is pretty clearly an S tier buff, at least to me. All right, now we have the Life Nebula, which is the nebula that increases your life regeneration. I think this is up there with the damage one, but not quite as good, so I'll put it a little bit lower, but also in A tier, right around there. Now we have the Lucky buff that you can get from the Luck Potions. I use it a lot when I'm trying to get rare drops, but I also don't think that it's amazing. It just kind of is decent. But for the fact that I use it a lot, I'll rate a little higher and put it like mid B tier. All right, now we have the Magic Power buff, which is just increased magic damage. Now, I do have to dock it down a little bit because it only works for one class, kind of like the Archery Potion, but I will put it higher than the Archery Potion because this works for a subclass, whereas the Magic Power Potion works for an entire class. All right, and now we have the Mana Nebula buff, and this just increases mana regen. Also useful, but again, I think it's the least useful out of the three, so I'll do a similar pattern and throw it right around there. All right, now we have the Magic Regeneration Potion. I think this isn't quite as good as the Magic Power Potion, but it's also really good. The amount of mana regen that you get from this is insane, so I think I'm gonna put it right there at the bottom of A tier. All right, now we have the Merfolk, and this is basically a combination of the Flipper Potion and the Gills Potion, and it also gives you buffs while underwater. So, I mean, I honestly think I'm gonna put it in bottom of S tier, just because it basically takes every other water buff and then makes them better and combines it all into one thing that is just passive from an accessory. All right, now we have the Mining Potion, and the Mining Potion is probably the potion that I use the most in this game. I think I gotta put it with the Building Potion, but like higher. All right, now we have the Night Owl Potion, and I mean, I guess the Night Owl Potion's cool. I think it's similar to the Invisibility Potion, where it's probably useful to somebody, but I never use it, so I'm gonna put it right there with it, a little bit higher. Now we have the Obsidian Skin Potion, which is very useful when mining Hellstone, and you pretty much never use it other than that. So I'll put it in B tier because you use it, it's very useful for that one occasion, but other than that, you pretty much never use this potion. All right, now we have the Panic Necklace buff, and I mean, the movement speed is nice, but I don't normally use the Panic Necklace. I don't think it's worth an entire accessory slot. However, it's still pretty good, so I'll put it in C tier. Now we have the Peace Candle, which is basically just the Peace Potion, but in placeable form. So for that reason, I feel like I have to put it right around the Calming Potion. All right, now we have the Pigron mount, and I mean, I don't really like the Pigron mount that much, but I have to say it's probably better than the B mount, so I will just put it right above the B mount and call it good. Next up, we've got the Pirate Staff, and honestly, this is a very underwhelming summon for me. So for that reason, I think I'm just gonna put it in D tier. I mean, it's like, it doesn't do as much damage as you would expect, and it's also pretty weird. All right, now we have the Black Spot mount, and this is the fastest mount in the game, one of the fastest ways to travel. It has infinite flight. I mean, I could keep going, but this is just an insane mount. I think it's probably the best mount in the game. So I'm gonna put this in S tier. All right, now we have the Plenty Satisfied buff, which is basically the middle tier food. I don't think I can put it in S tier because that's where Exquisitely Stuffed is, but I sure think I can put it in A tier, so I'll throw it right there. All right, now we have the Pogo Stick mount, which I didn't know existed until I made this video. It's pretty novel, but but I would never actually use it as a mount. I think it's just kind of there to be there. So for that reason, I'm just going to throw it in C tier, but it is cool and you can do flips. All right, now we have the Pygmy Staff, and the Pygmy Staff is basically a better pirate staff, if you ask me, but it's not too much better, so I'll upgrade it from D tier to C tier. Now we have the Rage Potion, which increases your critical strike chance. And I mean, this is another one of those essentials, pretty similar to the Endurance Potion. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in S tier, right with the Endurance. All right, we're kind of running out of room here, and I don't want to make these symbols too much smaller. So we're just going to forget that F tier exists. Keep in mind that the Inferno Potion and the Featherfall Potion are still there. All right, now we have the Rapid Healing buff, which comes from Palladium Armor. I never really used Palladium Armor, but I guess this is a pretty cool buff, actually. I will just say that I don't really have any experience with it, but it sounds good, so I'll throw it in B tier. All right, now we have the Raven Summon, and alone the Raven Summon isn't great. It's not bad. It's a pretty good summon, but what makes it good for me, at least, is the fact that it can be very useful for farms because they don't fly through blocks. So I think I would have put it low C tier, but because it's good for farms, I'm going to put it at the top of C tier, just about B tier. All right, now we just have the Regen Potion. I think it's very similar to the Iron Skin Potion in being good, but not insane. I will put it with the Iron Skin Potion a little bit higher. All right, now we have the Rudolph mount, which, you know, I've never used in a playthrough, but I guess it's cool. I think I'm just going to kind of throw it in that group of C tier mounts that I have right here. All right, now we have the Sanguine Staff Summon, and this summon's cool. It's really good at keeping enemies away from you because it kind of shoots out from your body and then knocks back enemies. And I'll probably throw it with these two good summons right here at the top. All right, now we have the Santa Tank mount, and I love how this thing looks, and I also think it actually has a surprisingly high amount of firepower. So I think I'm going to actually put this in S tier, but low S tier, just because of how cool it is and how surprisingly effective it also is. And now we have the Skulltix mount, which is a lot like the Santa Tank mount, but just not quite as good. For that reason, I think it is still cool, so I'll put it in B tier, but it's definitely not going to go in S tier like the other one. All right, now we have the Sharknado summon, and I think this thing is good, but it also struggles with aiming, a lot like a lot of the ranged summons. But overall, I think it's good, and for that reason, I will put it top of B tier. All right, now we have the Sharpening Station buff, Sharpened, and this increases armor penetration from melee weapons. Now, it is a station buff, which is nice, but it's also only for melee weapons, which is not nice. So for that reason, I think I'm going to throw it top of B tier. All right, now we have the Shine Potion. I think this is actually just a worse Night Owl potion. So for that reason, I'm just going to put it with Night Owl in D tier, but a little bit lower. And speaking of D tier, we're about to lose it because I'm going to put the Slime mount in A tier because the Slime mount I think is very cool. It's also really useful at falling fast, and I think that's the best part about it and pretty much the only thing you use it for. But it's also used in invincibility engines, which I never really use, but I know a lot of other people use it, which gives this mount another useful attribute. All right, now we have the Solar Blaze from the Solar Armor, and this thing's really good because it gives you a dash, and it also deals damage. It also reduces damage. So for that reason, especially since it's this passive armor set, I'm going to put it top of A tier. No, in fact, I'm going to put it S tier because, I mean, I use this dash all the time when I'm using the Zenith, and it's also just useful for other things as well. All right, now we've got the Sonar Potion, and oh boy, do people love telling me how useful this is on stream. I personally never use the Sonar Potion. I think it's useful if you're trying to conserve bait, but if you have a lot of bait, I find it pretty much pointless. So for that reason, I'm putting it bottom of C tier. All right, now we have the Splunker Potion, and I don't think this will surprise you that much that I'm going to put it in S tier. The Splunker Potion is amazing. It's so useful in so many different aspects. All right, now we have the Spider Staff, and this thing is good. I think it's a really good summon for when you can get it, which is the very beginning of hard mode. It poisons enemies, it latches onto them, it does good damage. So for that reason, I'm going to put it top of B tier, right around here. Okay, now we have the Stardust Cell. I mean, guys, the Stardust Cell is bad. Let's be honest. Why would you ever use the Stardust Cell when you can use the Stardust Dragon? Objectively, it's not a bad summon, but it gets outclassed by its counterpart that is the exact same crafting recipe. So why would you ever use it? For that reason, and that reason alone, just because a different item exists in the game, I'm putting this in F tier. You guys actually can't see it, but I'm putting it in F tier. And speaking of the Stardust Dragon, I have it here now. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves, the Stardust Dragon is the best summon in the game. Even with the new Terra Prisma, the Stardust Dragon is still the best summon in the game. It's just, it can't be beat. It has to go S tier. Sticking on the topic of Stardust, we now have the Stardust Guardian, which is the set bonus from the Stardust Armor. The Guardian got better in 1.4. It was already pretty good, but now it's even better. So I think think I'm going to throw this in A tier. Alright, now we have the star in a bottle, which is basically the heart lantern, but for mana. And I think health regen is better than mana regen, but this is still a very nice thing to place down, so I will also put it in A tier. Alright, now we have the striking moment buff, which honestly I don't think is too good for just general gameplay, but if you're trying to do fancy stuff with like one-shotting enemies or getting highest DPS with a certain item, I think this is a very useful buff. So for that reason, I will rate it higher than I otherwise would have, and I will put it top of B tier. Alright, now we have Sugar Rush. I'm going to put this bottom of A tier. Alright, now we have the Summoning Potion, which is basically just Bewitched, but in potion form. Well, I'll put it right next to it, but a little bit lower because you have to craft a potion. Now we have the Swiftness Potion, which is very similar to Regen and Iron Skin, as it's very easy to craft. I use it for pretty much all my boss fights, so I will put it right up here with Iron Skin. Alright, now we've got ourselves the Terra Prisma, which is a very, very cool summon. However, it's still not as good as the Stardust Dragon, but you can get it earlier than the Stardust Dragon. So I think I will also put this in S tier, but not as high as the Stardust Dragon, probably farther down here. Alright, now we have the Bass Defense buff. This is just a passive defense boost when you're near this statue. So, I mean, can't really beat that. It's basically just like an Iron Skin. Not quite as good as an Iron Skin, but it's passive and you don't have to make a potion, so I'm going to put it right here. Alright, now we have the Thorns potion, and I mean, I never really use this thing, if I'm being honest. I think it's decent. I'll probably just put it in C tier and call it good. Alright, now we have the Tipsy buff, which I never use unless I'm doing some special challenge or farm, or I'm just trying to maximize DPS. It only works for melee, and it has debuffs as well as buffs. It's technically considered a debuff, but it's also included on the buffs page. So, I mean, I will probably put it in B tier. Alright, now we have Titanium Barrier, Rip Shadow Dodge, but this is still a very good set bonus. Not quite as good as what it used to be, but it's still good. So I will probably put this bottom of A tier. Alright, now we have the Titan Potion, which just increases knockback. I never really use this thing, like ever, so I'm probably just gonna put it in C tier and call it good. Alright, now we have the Tree Mount, which is basically the ground equivalent of the Black Spot. It's super fast, but it can't fly, and it's slightly, ever so slightly slower than the Black Spot. So I don't think I can put it in S, but I will put it in A. Alright, now we have the Tortoise Mount, and I think this thing's kind of garbage, I'm not gonna lie. I never really see a point in using it, so I'll probably put it in D tier. Okay, now we've got the Twins Summon. I think it's good, but not great, so I'm gonna put it, along with the Spider and the Sharknado, at top of B tier. And now we have the UFO mount, which used to be amazing, but now it's been kind of outclassed by something like the Black Spot. However, I still think it's good, so I will put it at top of B tier. And now we have the UFO summon, which I again think is good, but it also, like pretty much all the other summons, struggles with aiming. But I think it's good. I'll probably put it like mid B tier. Alright, now we've got the Unicorn mount, which used to be the go-to speed option. I still think it's good because of how early you can get it, but it is outclassed a little bit by other mounts now, so I'll probably put it bottom of A tier. Alright, now we've got the Vampire Frog Staff, and I think it's cool, but it's also annoying to get because you have to Blood Moon Fish, and it's not overly great, so I'll probably put it mid C tier. Alright, now we've got the Warmth Potion, and I don't think I've ever used this thing in my life. Reduce damage from cold enemies, like how useful is that? It's a potion that you have to craft that's only useful for one biome. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, so I'm gonna put it in F tier. Alright, now we've got the Water Walking Potion, which is basically just the potion equivalent of Water Walking Boots, similar to the Flipper Potion. So for that reason, I'm just gonna group it with the Flipper Potion. Although I will put it a little higher because it can be useful when fighting Wall of Flesh. Now we've got Well Fed, and I mean, Well Fed is the worst of the food buffs, but it's still a good food buff, so I'll probably put it top of B tier. Alright, now we've got the Werewolf buff, which is basically the nighttime version of the Merman, and I think this is a very good buff. I think I will also put it in S. Yeah, I'm also going to put it in S, right here with the Merman. Alright, now we have the Queen Slime version of the Slimy Saddle, and I mean, this is just an objectively better Slimy Saddle, right? It's just a Slimy Saddle that can fly, so I'll just put it right above it, right here. Alright, now we have the Witch's Broom, and I mean, this is an infinite flight mount, but I'm honestly kind of underwhelmed by how it controls, and I feel like it's outclassed by the Black Spot, which you can get earlier in the game. So I'm just going to put this in like mid B tier. Alright, now we have the Wrath Potion, which is the final plus 10% buff, and I mean, this thing's great. I think it's better than Rage and Endurance, but it's right there with them, so I'm going to put it in S tier. Alright, now we have all of the imbues, and then we're done. So, we have the confetti imbue, which is completely useless, for being honest, but I guess it's cool, so I'll put it in C tier. We have the cursed flame imbue, which cursed flame is good, so I'll probably put this top of B tier. Now we just have the regular fire imbue, and I think this is just like cursed flame, but a little bit worse, so I'll put it right there. Now we have the gold imbue, which basically just makes enemies drop more gold, and I think that's cool, but I never really use it, so I'll probably put it bottom of B. Now we have the Ichor imbue, and I mean, Ichor's always really good, so I'll probably put this bottom of S tier because, I mean, making melee weapons inflict Ichor is really good. Now we have the nanites. I've never really been a huge fan of the confused debuff, so I'm probably going to put this D tier. All right, now we have the poison imbue, which I think is okay, I guess. I'll put it bottom of B. And finally, we have the venom imbue, which I think is just a better poison, so I will put this mid B. And there you guys have it, my ranking of every buff in Terraria. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing to be notified when I upload more like it in the future. And if you're interested in live content, you can head over to my Twitch where I stream 4 times a week. But with that out of the way, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. So I actually just made a Patreon. If you'd like to have your name at the end of my videos, as well as gain access to some other cool perks, I will have a link in the description of the video. It helps me continue making videos, so I really appreciate it.